This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. And I am so delighted that my guest today is a brand new published book author. Yay! I know what that feels like. It's like birthing your first child. And if you have more than one book, everyone is that rush of adrenaline, and it's like all of those months of hard labor are really, really good. And because I keep botching her name, I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Coach Jennie. Nice to meet you.
And tell us who you're bringing along today.
So I have my friend Hilda. Hilda is here. This is my book. Can you believe it? This is the proof of my book. It's very, very exciting. And Hilda, the tagline is tackle your inner naysayer, get out of your own way, and unleash your badassery.
Oh, and we all need some of that. And I call mine, my Hilda are called elephants. You know that, I think. Mm-hmm. And we all have to identify with them in the way that resonates with us the best. But I think it's wonderful when we run into our own blocks to hear another perspective about them. And that's what you're going to share with us today, along with your fabulous tips. So I'm giving you the floor. So take it away.
Hi, guys. So Hilda is the name that I give to that irksome inner naysayer who lives in your brain and tells you you suck. I mean, she fills your brain with all kinds of happy nonsense, right? And most of us go through life thinking we're just a little bit crazy, that we have all these weird, annoying, irksome thoughts, but they're in your brain. Why would your brain lie to you, right? Well, that's why I've decided to give it a ridiculous name. Apologies to anybody named Hilda. You get to call yours Jennie, just so we're fair, okay? But Hilda is that name that just seemed really silly to me. I've never met a Hilda in my personal life, so I went with it. And the reason we do this, and the reason, Kat, you call it elephants, is you want to disassociate yourself from those thoughts and attribute it to somebody else. Now, I like to humanize that person. And so you can name yours whatever the heck you want. Gertrude, Mildred, Mr. Picklebottom is one of my personal favorites from my clients. I love that. But naming that person then allows you to attribute those thoughts to a second party. And instantly, it's kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, it's ridiculous to name a voice inside your head, Hilda. That's the point. As soon as you do this ridiculous thing, you take the message a lot less seriously. You kind of chuckle at yourself. You know what I mean? It's kind of silly. And now that it's silly and it feels a little lighter, you can do something about those crazy thoughts. You can come up with a way to manage them, to negate them, to argue with them, to hit them with a comeback so they don't sabotage you anymore. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. I want to help people learn about Hilda and this ridiculous tool that I've created, tool in every sense of the word, right? But Hilda's a tool for you to get out of your own way so that you can get on with doing something that really, really matters to you.
Yeah. All right. So tell us what is your first tip? What can we do in 15 minutes or less to really jumpstart this process?
So the first thing I really want to teach you is to recognize when Hilda's talking. So my very first tip for you is to bust out 2 sticky notes. I'm a big fan of the Post-its, right? So bust out 2 sticky notes. And the next time you hear Hilda's voice, write it down. Try not to judge it, right? When she says, "Who do you think you are?" You're not serious, are you? Hey, you want to go watch a bunch of Netflix? When she's trying to sabotage you, whatever she says, jot it down on that sticky note without judgment. Now, step back for a minute and just kind of look at that sticky note and say, okay, what would I do if my best friend in the whole wide world said that to me? Now, my best friend in the world, his name is Matt. So if Matt said that to me, I would have some choice words, right? I would have a response. Now, I don't want you to make an emotional reaction to it. I want you to make it a thoughtful response. And then write down that thoughtful response on the other sticky note. So the other sticky note, when Matt or Hilda said, "Who do you think you are to write a book?" I mean, nobody's going to want to read your book. It's so boring, whatever. And I jot that down. I say, you know what? I'm the person who spent 10 years developing this idea with a lot of coaching clients. And It ain't for everybody. I'm not trying to be for everybody. I'm for anybody who's standing in their own way and they know that they're meant to change the world in a small or significant way in their own way. And the only thing that's happening is they're just sabotaging themselves. Mm-hmm. So I would write down a much shorter version of that on my second sticky note. And voila, you instantly have your first comeback to Hilda. The next time Hilda shows up with a, who do you think you are? You can look at the new sticky note and say, let me tell you, this is who I am. This is exactly who I am. When she says, ooh, that's too risky, that's too scary, you can say, yeah, but you know what? I'll survive. The worst case scenario is when she says something like, ooh, you're just not relationship material. You can say, bollocks, let me show you all of this evidence to the contrary. So you can hit her with a comeback, and that's what I want you to practice over and over again. The sticky notes is a simple way to do it, but that's one quick tip for you.
Oh, I love that. That's very similar to how I was taught spokesperson training when, back in the 1970s when I was working with Michigan Farm Bureau, and before we had our big crisis when fire retardant was accidentally introduced into a lot of cattle feed. And, we went into that crisis management mode, and we had to be ready for interview questions. And you knew they were going to be tough ones, but they also trained us how to be prepared for completely out of the blue, unexpected ones, the ones that were meant to derail you. And that's kind of what our self-sabotage talk does. It wants to keep us safe, but it serves to self-destruct us. And I love your tip of having that block answer, that truthful answer, because it doesn't work if you just put up nonsense up there that you don't believe. You got to put up stuff that's true about you.
Exactly. Because see, what Hilda's doing is she's making you scared. When you feel fear and Hilda gets involved, she wants you to feel the fear without thinking it through. Because if you think it through, you're going to see through the holes of the fear and be like, hey, that ain't so bad. It might still be scary. I'm not putting down your fear and I'm not diminishing it in any way. But if you just feel the fear without thinking through the fear, it feels a lot heavier.
Yeah.
So when I ask you and I say, okay, I'm feeling the fear. Great. What is that fear? Name it. Say it. And then hit me. Yes, exactly, Cindy. What's the worst case scenario? Like, seriously, how bad could it be?
That's great.
And really be realistic about the worst case scenario. Are we talking about a cardboard box in the street? No, we're probably talking about embarrassing yourself in front of your husband or something, right? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Nobody buys it. Okay, great. But then flip the coin over. Because far too often we just look at the worst case scenario, and that's kind of depressing. What about the best case scenario? What happens if everything goes your way? Ideally, like seriously, how great would that be? Most people don't let their imaginations go there when they're feeling fear. And Hilda's involved because she doesn't want you to see that possibility. No. She wants you to worry about a worst case scenario that you're not thinking about. Well, we're going to use logic to shut her down. Now we've thought it through. Okay, take it another step. Ask yourself, where do you fall into play? Where do you have complete control over this situation? Because there's aspects of it you have complete control over. You have complete control over how hard you work. You have complete control over how much you put it out there, stuff like that. There's areas where you don't have complete control, but you have a heck of a lot of influence. Say you're trying to sell a new book or something. You can't control people busting out their wallets, but you have a lot of influence out of making sure that they hear the name Hilda over and over and over again or something, right? And then let's be real, where do you have no control? Well, you have no control over what happens in the world, the weather. There's a lot of things you have no control over. For example, I have no control over if my book comes out the same day as Seth Godin's. I have no control over what he's doing, right? So knowing what those things are, now you've looked at all of this. You've got these 5 beautiful data points. How's that fear feel now, right? And now suddenly the fear is probably diminished enough to tell you whether or not you want to move forward. And that's the next question. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. I see that working too if looking at that big picture brings new fears, because I deal with a lot of people who have a fear of success, either unrecognized fear of success or a recognized fear of success, and then their fear really blows up. So your method works for that too. You write out the answer to that one too.
Exactly. One of the examples in the book is actually the fear of becoming a D-bag. Sorry for that language, ladies, but the fear of becoming a D-bag. I am going to become successful, and then I'm going to get addicted to my own hype, and everybody's going to hate me that loved me once upon a time because I become that girl, right? That fear, is it legit, right? Where do you have control in this situation?
Yeah.
Everywhere. You have everywhere. You have complete control over how much of a D-bag you decide to become, right? And how much of a total loon. There's a lot of people who let success get to their head, and you see that and you want to avoid that. Well, that's Hilda's way of making sure that you don't cross a finish line, right?
Yeah, I love that.
All she's trying to do is keep you from crossing the finish line. And she freaks out as soon as you can smell the paint on that finish line. She's doing everything in her power to make sure you avoid it, because that's unsafe. To your point, Kat, Hilda means well, which I know seems crazy considering everything I said, but she simply wants you to stay safe and sound and small and cozy, so you never have to fail again.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. She doesn't want you to fail. Now, you'll never succeed either, but that's beside the point. You'll never fail, right? Like, that's what Hilda wants you to experience. And unfortunately, the way she goes about it is really crummy.
Yeah. All right. So what's the next step to take?
So the next step so there's no specific process. There's no one way to slay your particular Hilda, but this is what I want to tell you. When I started out to write this book, I thought I was on a mission to kill her. I thought I was on a mission to figure out how to slay the beast. But I've come to find out that audacious people that are doing really brilliant, amazing things, aren't going to kill Hilda. Because as soon as you cross one finish line, you're really stepping over a starting line, aren't we? Right? Mm-hmm. And all of us were ready to level up and take on the next challenge. We have that wonderful side effect of audacity, I call it, of what's next, which I love and Hilda kind of hates, right? And so Hilda is going to get more sophisticated and more sly. And that's why you need to practice being able to shorten the amount of time she takes up in your head. And even better, shorten the amount of time her thoughts control your feelings and instruct your actions. If you can decide, okay, wait, I hear a thought. Wait, that ain't true. That's Hilda. What do I think? Okay, let me tell Hilda where to go, send her out to coffee. Here's what I think. Here's how that makes me feel. I'm going to behave accordingly. That really is a practice. And as you level up, no matter when you're done leveling up, hopefully you're always going to have this voice. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you have the voice of Hilda in your head, it means you're doing something that matters. Something that matters to you and something that matters to others. And that's so important. If we silence that voice, you're probably sitting around eating bonbons, and nobody needs that.
Right. And there are times when we are in situations where what our Hilda says to us is important. And we are in a dangerous situation, and maybe there are two paths, and we haven't given enough thought to a second one. So I love being prepared. I love that you don't want to kill her off anymore. I've learned from experience that our Hildas don't like to be ignored, but given a job to do, like going out for coffee, or go write something else for me, or go take care of over there, they'll keep themselves busy for a while and leave you alone.
It's so true. And you're going to notice Hilda now. That's kind of the blessing and the curse of having a conversation with me. Now you will notice Hilda. And you'll notice when Hilda is talking out of your loved ones and friends, you'll be like, wow, I had no idea. That's Hilda. And you're going to start to notice it. And I mean this. I don't care if Coach Jennie never becomes a household name. But my dream is to instigate audacity in as many humans as possible, so then I can sit back and watch the world change. So I really want Hilda to be a household name.
Yeah.
I want that to become a thing.
Well, we want that for both of you. I love that we've already got people in the chat room talking about what their names.
Yes.
Oh, good grief.
Marisa.
Marisa, thank you. It's with an E, only it's spelled with an I. Hers is called Fred. And Cindy Freeman says, ooh, the worst case scenario is, in quotes, she said, that one sounds good and a way to block the sabotage that we all have sitting in our heads anyway. And if we actually say it out loud, it derails the fear. And one of my favorite quotes is from Brian Tracy, and it's a take on what many others throughout the centuries have said, and it's do the thing you fear, and the thing you fear will go away. And I've learned working with my own clients and my own struggles that we don't really change until the fear of staying where we are is greater than the fear of changing. And I love that Hilda can give us that, she can pull us back if we let her, but she can also give us that kick in the seat of our pants to move us forward as well.
Precisely. I love that. Again, I emphasize that the premise of my book, the premise of Hilda, is ridiculous by definition and intentionally, because so are all of these messages that we're so used to listening to. So I just hope for you, for everybody that's listening, for everybody that reads this book, that you get better and quicker at differentiating between what Hilda has to say about it and your truth. Because just because it's a thought in your head doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. Marisa says, sometimes I thank Fred, which is her Hilda, for trying to protect me and reassure him that all is well and he can take a chill pill and take a nap. I love that.
Yes, I love it. It's okay, Fred. It's okay. Exactly. Because again, he's just trying desperately to make sure you're okay. And he's freaked out. He's kind of, some people like describe their Hilda or their Fred, they describe that person as kind of like a manic Tasmanian devil, just like wigging out over every possible thing. And I can totally see that. I can totally see that, that vision for Fred when you're talking Marisa. And I think it's great. Give him a chill pill and nap. I've got work to do. I'm going to stay busy.
Exactly. All right. So give us a quick summary of what we can do to start. And I also want you to tell us where we can get your book.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a few more minutes for some question and answers here.
Perfect. So to sum everything up, the way you start to slay Hilda and work with Hilda and figure out how to get that woman to quiet down is to start paying attention to the noise in your head. And I promise you, you will now. And you're going to be like, oh, that Jennie. You're going to notice every time Hilda pipes up. You're going to notice every time she starts using tentative language, like, I think I might, maybe someday, perhaps. You're going to start noticing this stuff, right? You're going to notice when she's putting you down. You're going to notice when she's telling you you can't, that you shouldn't, that you don't know, or that you don't want to do something you really want to do. That's her 4 base messages, and you're going to notice that. And once you notice it, I really want you to bust out those sticky notes. That really is step 1 to figuring this out, is raising that awareness and hitting her with a comeback. Now, my book comes out on September 1st.
Show it again. Show us.
My book. And here's the Hilda Vogue, everybody. The Hilda Vogue, which is important. This is, I can't, Hilda.
I feel more like the Village People.
I don't know. I don't want to. I know it's got a YMCA feel, doesn't it? So Hilda comes out on September 1st. You can get all the information you could possibly want at hildathebook.com. And if you go there, you can download the handy dandy Hilda cheat sheet. So you can learn a little bit about the 4 different Hildas and what she's trying to convince you of. So yeah. Check it out at hildathebook.com.
And if you haven't yet and you're here in the chat room, it's in the chat for you. You can click the more little down carrot, the down arrow, and save it to your computer. I'll add it to the post when we do the replay so people can get it. Wishing you great success. I'm going to mute people. If you have questions or comments or want to share, go for it. Marisa, you've been here the longest. You were here before when we got started. What's your take on all of this?
Oh, I think it's great. I like I said, I don't remember how long ago I came up with Fred or where I came up with that idea, but I did recognize that there's definitely pieces that kind of show up. that don't support me at all in where I want to go in life and what I want to accomplish. So I decided to give it a name, and I honestly don't remember if I picked that up from a book or some webinar or whatever, but I think what you're sharing is really very important and vital, because many people are not aware that these thoughts that run around in our heads, most of them aren't ours. They come from, society, parenting, upbringing, teachers, whatever, all these negative thoughts, because we really are incredible beings capable of so much more than we think. So helping people get to the truth, I think it's just very valuable. So congratulations on your book. I know how exciting it is. I'm planning to launch my first book in September as well, later in the month. So I can know where you're at. So that's great. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And Lisa's going to be my guest coming up
next
week. I hope you can join us again, Jennie. See?
I would love that.
Be here next week, next Friday already.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. All righty. Anyone else have any questions or anything else you want to share? Jennie, I want to hear Jennie. Yeah, Jennie.
Yeah, you said it right.
See, now that I got it right, I've been... Go away. I want to know more about the process, especially since this was your first book. And having, I've published 15 books, my first one way back in 1986. And the process was basically the same for the first one, for the 15th one, and I'm working on new ones now. But what did you find was the biggest surprise for you?
So I utilize action research to develop my book. I have been doing coaching for 10 years. So September 1st is the 10th anniversary of my business. So I'm launching my book on that because I'm cheeky like that, I guess. So I use action research. So what I did was I took what I had been talking about in these individual coaching practices and had these live events using Zoom and Blab and all these different online services to keep adding layers and levels of sophistication to this concept. I didn't know there would be 4 different styles of Hilda. I was very surprised to find out that it was more complicated than I thought in the beginning. And again, like I said earlier, I was very surprised to find out that I thought I needed to find one silver bullet solution, a pill that tasted like chocolate to solve this problem. And I came to realize that it's actually a gift. It's actually a gift that we have these Hildas in our heads. We just have to learn how to manage that person, how to handle Hilda.
Right.
So those were some of the biggest surprises. The other thing that surprised me is that it's 10 times harder to publish a book than I thought. I hear these people share stories of writing a book on a flight from Austin to Boston or something. And that is not my system. I can't write a really great blog post in that flight. So for me, it was almost a year of really hard work, and I couldn't be more delighted with how it turned out.
And, I can understand that. My very first book, to show you the difference between my first and my most recent one, which was 201. This was 1986. This was the award winner, though. This was the national award winner. Nothing like this had ever been published before. And it didn't, no one knew except for a very few people that my first book was self-published back in 1986, when it was still, a big no, you couldn't do that. Right. And you were a bad stepchild over there, So, yeah. And when Writer's Digest Books eventually bought the publisher I contracted for the second edition, and a Writer's Digest book, which is the F&W Publications largest publisher of how to write books in the world, acquired the rights to publish it for the last 4 editions. They still didn't know it was self-published. And I was in their book club right from the get-go, and there was a policy: we don't include self-published books. But like I tell people that I coach, self-publishing is just a means of getting published. There are people that wear these badges, I'm a self-published author, and figure that that's a reason to buy it. No, it's not. That's just how you published it. Sorry. That's not a promotional point.
I'm an indie publisher. Isn't that the new hipster phrase for it?
So, oh yeah. And yeah. So I think it's wonderful that you went through this. And I love that you learned about the different layers of Hilda, because if we look at ourselves, we're not one-dimensional people either. We have different layers to ourselves as well.
Exactly. And, another surprise is when I discovered and, we developed, I co-created this book with my community. And when we developed, okay, I'm seeing four distinct patterns that all these Hilda-isms, that's what I call those messages. The Hilda-isms fit into that I can't, I shouldn't, I don't know, I don't want to. Then I thought, okay, I need a personality profile because clearly we all have one. And then I realized that is so not true. In my personal life, I've got a whole lot of I don't want to. But in my business life, I shouldn't rears its ugly head. And then sometimes one project, maybe this one, will have a visit from all four Hildas, kind of like, the Ghost of Christmas Past. Every single one showed up for this party. So it's really interesting to kind of realize that while there's those four different ones, they have a slightly different tactic, and there's a slightly different style of shutting her down. They show up in different ways. So it really isn't I kept expecting there to be a simple solution.
No.
And there's just not.
No, and doing a book is very much like birthing a baby and growing a baby. As much as we expect that baby to come out a certain way with a certain personality, they develop on their own, and you need to listen to them. And one of the things that I was complimented most on about my book is that it added features that the writers' markets, the Bibles of getting published at the time, did not include. And I didn't tell Writer's Digest until I think it was the 5th edition. And I was sitting in Cincinnati talking to the editor-in-chief. And he said, he's looking at my editor, and they're looking around the room, and the book club director was there, and they've all got this sheepish look on their face. I'm going, what are they going to tell me that, they don't want to do the next one or something, and it was Bill Burroughs, I believe at the time. And he said, we've got to admit something to you. And I said, what's that? And he said, that very first book, we've been with your book since the beginning, we took elements of your book and put them into our market guides. And yet when I started the book, I tried to fit my format to what was already out there. And I kept running into this thing like yours that had this little, no, there's this aspect and you have to include this. And it wasn't until I let the book be the book it needed to be that it blossomed. And it was those things that made it extra special. I mean, I was the first person to ever put in a how to publish book, and the advice I give kids and teens is the exact same advice I give adults. I was the first person to put in book form how to publish on the online. I mean, this was way back before there was the internet the way we know it.
Yeah.
And I had the interviews with editors and young writers, and Stephen King's in my book. It's really cool. But to hear that from them, my comeback was, well, I have a confession to make to you too. By the way, that first book was self-published. And they went, and I made $15,000 profit in 8 months on that book when it came out.
Beautiful. I hope to follow in those footsteps.
Yeah, well, you can. I will tell you for those, because I know we draw a lot of people that are working on books because it's such an expression of ourselves. And we are mostly a service-based community associated with Rocking Your Path. I had to remind Jenny to go get her book to show you the cover because I knew she had it with her.
I just got the proof in my defense. I've had it for not even 36 hours. I'm not used to having something to hold up. It's so exciting, but she had to remind me to have it handy. Yep. So yeah, I will always have it handy from now on. Lesson learned.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today for Fast Action Friday. That was wonderful, action-based tips that we can go forward with, and a lot of insight that I can tell you, we all need to hear repeatedly because the challenges don't go away.
Right.
And you said something that I always say too. It's like, yeah, the purpose is to understand the challenges that we're faced with, recognize them more quickly, have a process in place to move past them more quickly, and be on our way, right?
Yes.
So here's to all the Hildas and Freds and Elephants and other associated friends we each of have trying to keep us safe. Let's be kind to them, but let's give them proper recognition and orders, right? Is that good?
That's fantastic. Exactly. Or at least send Hilda out to coffee a lot more often.
Exactly.
Kat, thank you for inviting me to be part of this. And I'm really excited to learn about what you're doing over here with Fast Action Fridays. And I can't wait to tune in next week for Marisa.
All right, good. This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com, closing another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Remember to rock your whole week, and also remember to rock your unique path to success. See you next week.